So I'm starting with the Zenithal coat using Vallejo Dead White. I know a lot of other guides don't, they opt to keep the model black. Probably to save time later, which is valid. I know you have a lot of goblins to paint, but I do think a pure black is not as good on the coat as, say, what I'm going to do. But for now, we're just brushing on this dead white. This is going to be our maximum highlight for our Zenithal coating, and we'll go from there. Working inside out, next we're going to hit the flesh. I know GW has like 9 different green tones named after orcs or goblins, but ignore your instincts. Don't grab those. Instead, embrace Grandfather Nurgle and grab your Plague Bearer Flesh. This is going to give you a base coat of a really bright, kind of palish green that I think looks really great on goblins. It's probably the best skin tone in my opinion. Try to avoid the teeth if you can. And don't forget the ears sticking out of the hood. Now I'm going to use Corvus Black for the robe. I know this is different than how a lot of people say how to paint goblins. This is slower. A lot of people just prime it black, but the problem with doing that is you're going to get a true black on your robes, which I don't think is very accurate. To have like a deep, dark, true black on clothes, it just doesn't work that way. Plus, Corvus Black is more like a really dark gray, and it has the added benefit of taking on, aspects of washes you use a lot better than say a true black will. This will let us use some Agrax Earthshade to really kind of make the robe grimy and, fitting of a goblin, say, than if we were just using a pure matte black. But the trade-off here is it does take longer to paint. Once the robe is complete and dry, we're going to hit it with a layer of Agrax Earthshade. Feel free to use a pretty heavy wash on this. It's going to help the robe look grimy and dirty, like a goblin should. When the wash is dry and the robe is dirty and proper for a greenskin, we're going to hit the metal of our weapon here, our ball and chain. With a dark metallic here, I'm using plate armor by Tooth and Coats, and we're just going to cover all the metallic bits. Here I'm hitting the leather bits on his armbands and the sheath for his knife with the contrast leather color. I think here I'm using snakeskin leather, but Gruntifer also works. Agros Dunes, you know the drill. Now we're going to use a small dry brush and some Eshin Gray, and we're going to hit everywhere on the robes where you see rumples or edges on the robe. This is going to be our edge highlighting process. Just be very careful not to get it on your wonderful Goblin Flesh. This is a fairly light dry brush. There's not a lot of paint on my brush at all, and I'm just being slow, methodical, and careful. Now I'm hitting his shoes with some Gore Grunta fur. Honestly, I just forgot these. I should have done this earlier. You should always work inside to outside when using contrast paints, but this works. Now I'm using Dawnstone, and even the lighter dry brush than last time, using a smaller brush, I'm going to hit all those raised areas on the robe again. Just going to add just a little bit more depth with this second lighter highlight. Again, this takes a bit longer than a lot of other methods, but the end results are great, and honestly, I can still churn these out very, very fast. Now I'm going to paint the moon on his robe. A lot of different yellows could work, but it just feels right to use Bad Moon Yellow from GW for this. Moving right along, we're now going to use some Xandri Dust. We'll work on the rope parts of his weapon. Just get a nice base coat here of Xandri Dust. And once that's dry, we're going to dirty it up a little bit with Agrex Earthshade. Orcs and goblins just shouldn't have nice things. Now I'm pulling out some Griff Charger Gray to dinge up the weapon. Even using the darker metallics, this is still pretty light. This contrast paint over metallics kind of makes it look darker and older. Honestly, you can do a lot of interesting things with contrast paints over metallics. I definitely recommend experimenting with it or looking at other guides. You really get some cool effects. I really like how this gray looks over metal. Still looking a little too bright for my grim dark Warhammer taste, so I'm just putting another layer of Griff Charger Gray over this. While the grunge on my weapon dries, I'm just going to hit the skin with a little bit of Beeltan green shade, being very careful to avoid the teeth, avoid the rope, but just add depth to his arms, face, and ears. We're just being very careful, very precise, with about a medium amount of wash on my brush to cover all of his skin. And now that the Griff Charger Gray is finally dry on the weapon, we're going to go over it with a Agrex Earthshade wash just to make it look dirtier. It's a goblin weapon. I don't want it to look like it's been maintained. And now I'm just going to hit the high points on his weapon with some Rune Fang Steel. I'm not going to do too much because I don't want to make this look clean. I just want to do it to the higher points of the chain, like lights reflecting on it, just to add depth. So very careful, very precise with a very small brush. And we're making sure to hit the bits and knobs at the end of the ball as well. And we are pretty much done. I'm just going to hit some of these last little bits, the lashings over the knife. I'm using some Aggros Dune here, and we're going to call it a complete model. And then you're done, and you have a proper Warhammer Goblin. Easy to paint, fast, and looks absolutely phenomenal on the tabletop. I hope this tutorial helped bring you closer to the Greenskin army you always envisioned. Thanks for watching.